I got the cream of the crop here behind me. This is a Ram 3500 with the 6.7 high output, the Big Daddy topper Cummins, and we're gonna put 14,000 pounds behind this baby, run her down the highway, and see how much better it is at towing compared to the standard output 6.7 Cummins. Welcome back to the channel, guys. It is a beautiful cold January day here in New Brunswick. Perfect for towing with this good old diesel. And like you guys heard, this is the high output 6.7 Cummins. Really excited to get my hands on it. And well, we got 14,000 pounds behind it. And I really want to compare this high output engine to the standard output Cummins, because if you guys remember when I towed with that engine in the summer, I was a little bit disappointed with the performance. And there's a number of reasons why, but yeah. Really excited to see if this high output Cummins is worth all the hype. Now, there are a couple critical differences between these two trucks other than the engines themselves, which I will get into later. This high output engine is putting out 420 horsepower as well as 1,075 pound-feet of torque in comparison to the standard output. That outputs 370 horsepower as well as 850 pound-feet of torque. So at least on paper, there is a pretty substantial performance difference between both of these engine platforms. Behind me, this is our 14,000 pound trailer. It's the exact same trailer setup we towed in the summer with that standard output. Same trailer, same load location, which is gonna give us the same tongue weight. We're also gonna be towing the exact same 200-kilometer loop. Well, I figure it's time we fire this girl up and get her down the road. All right, first things first, just like the standard output Cummins, typical Cummins, this thing just has so much bottom end torque, makes it so easy just kind of driving around town, getting the load up to speed. As we always do, our first test here is our acceleration test, 60 kilometers an hour to 110 kilometers an hour, roughly 70 miles an hour. And we'll time it and we'll see if this high output Cummins is significantly faster. The other really noticeable thing is the sound. That Cummins diesel knock is just very familiar, I guess, to me because it's that inline six. It sounds like a big truck. Jumping on the old highway here. All right, 60 to the floor. Definitely feels quicker. 110. That did feel pretty quick. We got our cruise control set at 110 kilometers an hour like we always do. Truck is in tow haul mode with the engine brake on, or sorry, the exhaust brake on full, and we'll just let the truck do its thing. Good old Cummins, always got that low end power, but the main thing that I'm looking for on this run is to see how this high output engine handles the bigger hills on the backstretch. When I tow with the standard output Cummins, I was quite frankly a little disappointed because again, it had a 6-speed transmission and it just felt like there was not enough power in that engine to maintain speed on those bigger hills, and we saw the engine get bogged down quite a bit. This engine here also has a 6-speed transmission hooked up to it, but I'm hoping that the extra power in this engine can just really push us forward despite not having that many gears to choose from. So here's a nice little hill here to just, you know, start us off. We'll see how much boost this thing is gonna shove into the engine. The standard output, the most boost I saw was 24 pounds, but this high output is rumored to put way more boost. Oh yeah, 29, 24. Okay, we're back at 24. So we almost cracked 30 pounds of boost on that little hill, and that is one of the big differences between this engine and the standard output, is this engine can utilize its turbo and feed more boost into the engine to make obviously more power. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about the engine differences here. One of the main reasons why this 6.7 Cummins is such a good pulling and towing engine comes down to, well, the engine design. I've said it many times before, this is an inline six diesel engine. Inline six engines naturally just have really long strokes, and this engine is no exception. This engine has a stroke almost of 5 inches, which is substantially longer than the Duramax as well as the Power Stroke engine. And with long strokes just come a very natural mechanical advantage of creating torque. Now, along with a long stroke and an inline six design, this engine also utilizes offset connecting rods, which again, just compound mechanical advantage against the crankshaft. You have a longer crank throw, and those offset connecting rods just allow so much more chemical energy to be transferred into mechanical energy, and that just creates a lot of low end torque. The standard output engine uses a compression ratio of 19:1. This engine uses a compression ratio of 16.2:1, so a little bit less, and it does sound backwards, but what this allows this engine to do is utilize its turbo so much more. It allows the turbo to put more boost in this engine and therefore make more power. Now, that is the biggest difference in my opinion. Now, along with those different pistons and the lower compression ratio on this engine, Cummins most definitely has a different tune on this engine. Overall, both these engines, the high output and the standard output, are extremely similar and they share a ton of parts. And thankfully, both of those engines share the strong towing mechanical advantage. However, this engine, the high output, just has a little bit more of an advantage when it comes to towing. One of the other really nice things or differences about the high output Cummins is the peak torque. So the peak torque is 1,075 pound-feet of torque, which is a lot, but that comes at 1,350 RPM versus the standard output that makes its peak torque at 1,700 RPM. So this thing is making well over 1,000 pounds at like 1,300 RPM, which is actually very, very impressive. And it just allows you to just, you know, when you're driving stoplight to stoplight in town with the heavy load, this thing will just move weight so easily. And that is one of the first things I noticed when getting into this truck behind a loaded trailer is just, it just moves the weight incredibly easy. Now, in my opinion, that standard output 6-speed really held back that Cummins engine. And well, the 68 RFE, which is that transmission, in my opinion, is just not really a great transmission. But there's also a 6-speed in this truck, the Asen 6-speed, and interestingly enough, the 6-gear ratio is 0.63:1 in both transmissions. And with the same gearing in this truck, 373s, we actually literally have the same driveline ratios. So I'm really hoping all that extra torque available is going to help propel this truck forward without bogging her down. Now, if there is a downside of having the high output Cummins, it's probably going to be your fuel economy. We're sitting at 10.8 miles per gallon. The standard output finished with 11.7. So we'll keep an eye on this, but I highly suspect our fuel mileage will take a little bit of a hit. In terms of our transmission and oil temp, we're sitting at an ice cold 73 degrees for the trans temp and 88 degrees for the oil temp. This is where the Cummins shined last time, the engine brake, pardon me, the exhaust brake. And you guys might be able to hear it, but last time it held us real nice and steady. 112, not bad at all. 111, in my opinion, it is the best exhaust brake out of the Power Stroke and the Duramax. The Duramax, in my opinion, kind of just was not there. The Power Stroke was okay, but this one is just, it feels just far better. And there is something to be said when towing a heavy load, having the ability to bring that load to a stop. And this truck certainly has that exhaust brake to help. Oh yeah, listen to that engine brake work. I keep calling it engine brake, it's an exhaust brake. The big diesels have engine brakes, not this thing, but sorry guys. There you go. You can just feel that exhaust brake just holding us back. Like, I didn't even have to touch the brake really coming off the highway there. Honestly, probably one of the more impressive features about this Cummins engine is that exhaust brake. But then, yeah, then there's the power too. Oh, little wheel slippage there. I'm sure that didn't hurt our fuel economy. This truck behind me here is rated for 23,600 pounds of max towing ability, in comparison to our standard output engine. That thing was only rated for 19,980 pounds, just a hair under 20,000 pounds. So you are gonna get a little bit of more towing ability with this truck. So it is interesting that this 3500 with the high output, the big boy Cummins, is only rated for like an extra 3,600 pounds of towing. Why do I think it's fair to compare this 3500 high output to the 2500 standard output Cummins when it comes to towing? Well, there's a number of reasons. The first one is the price. So usually it's like $4,000 to $5,000 of difference between the Ram 2500 and the Ram 3500 single wheel high output Cummins engine. So yes, that's not necessarily cheap, but when you're looking at $80,000, $85,000, $90,000 trucks, why not spend a little bit extra money and get the best, because this is the best. So pricing is closer than you think. This 3500 single wheel looks almost identical to a Ram 2500. Another big factor is payload. The Ram 2500 that I towed with had a max payload of 2,100 pounds, which quite frankly is just not that much for an HD pickup truck. This truck, on the other hand, has a max payload capacity of 3,700 pounds, which in my opinion is a huge difference. Now, the number one reason why I think stepping up to the 3500 platform high output engine is worth that extra $4,000 or $5,000 is because of the transmission you get behind that engine. Is the Aisin 6-speed, which is just an extremely strong unit. Going around town, it shifts a little bit clunky. It's not the smoothest thing, but it's not gonna let you down, and it's rated to tow a ton of weight. So that's the number one reason why I think most people should be looking at upgrading to the 3500 high output. Right, back on the road we go. 14,000 pounds, this engine just throws it around like it's nothing. There's our hill right there. Excited to see what this engine does. With the standard output Cummins, it took us, I believe, like 50 or 51 seconds to reach 110 on this hill. So we'll see what this high output does. Right now we're at 108 and 107. We'll start to lose a little bit of speed here. 106. All right, she's boosting up, 25 pounds of boost. Downshifted fifth gear, 107. Oh boy, 108. See, okay, so the standard output kind of struggled just like this. We're under speed right now, but I'm looking at our boost gauge and it's not where it should be. Like, we should be at 30 pounds of boost. Interesting, interesting. Still not at 110. I wonder if I put my foot down. Okay. I think the cruise control there kind of had a mind of its own because there was definitely more power in the tank there. So on our next hill here, I'm gonna actually just use my foot. So this is our second big hill. It kind of goes up and around here, as you guys will see. But what I'm interested in is whether or not I use my foot if we can get more boost out of this engine, because the engine was only boosting at like 20 PSI on that first big hill, which this engine can boost much higher. So yeah, we're under 110 kilometers an hour. There we go, there's a downshift. So we're about 108 kilometers an hour, and you can see we're at 20 PSI of boost, 19 PSI of boost. But if I put my foot into it, there we go, 31 PSI of boost. And we're at 120 kilometers an hour. So this thing can definitely pull. I don't know what that cruise control is doing, but yeah, very, very interesting. This thing can pull like an absolute beast when you put your foot into her. Good old high output. Lastly, we can't forget good old fuel economy. We're averaging 11.0 miles per gallon. Like I mentioned earlier, the standard output finished with 11.7. So as predicted, as the forums have said, this thing is just, well, you're not going to get as good fuel economy because it's just shoving more power into that engine. We made her back to the shop. She's getting cold out there. But yes, this high output Cummins, while it is a little bit of a dream to tow with, just so much power. And, you know, obviously 14,000 pounds is nowhere near its max towing capacity, so it should be like that. But when comparing it to the standard output Cummins, which we are doing today, it just goes to show that it is indeed tangibly on the road in the real world, just that much more powerful. And to me, it was pretty noticeable. It just had another level in terms of pulling ability. In my opinion, if you're towing 14,000 pounds, you're gonna be looking at an HD truck of some kind. And if you're looking for a Ram and you don't want a big dually, to me, this is the truck you guys should be looking for. Yes, it is going to be a little bit more expensive. And if you have that much money already willing to go towards one of these trucks, why not get the best? But anyways, guys, that's my opinion. Let me know what you think as always. Hope you guys liked the video. If you did, don't forget to leave that thumbs up. And if you like cool stuff like this, don't forget to subscribe because, well, we got lots of stuff planned for the rest of the year. And I'm super excited. So enough of me. We'll see you in the next freaking video.